If you're hearing this, it's because a part of you that has been silent is beginning to speak again. Listen, this isn't an accident. This is a signal. A deep structural shift is taking place within the bedrock of who you are. You weren't meant to overlook this moment. You are poised at the brink of a transformation your spirit has been laboring toward for what feels like a lifetime. Even if you couldn't articulate the weight you've been carrying, what we explore here isn't casual inspiration. This is the revelation of a profound psychological pattern, the moment the psyche initiates its own restoration. And this process leaves unmistakable markers in your everyday reality. You are, whether you know it or not, already following its trail. There are days when the world seems to vibrate with a different intensity. A memory surfaces, unbidden, vivid. You encounter the same unusual symbol again and again in unrelated places. A line from a poem you randomly read echoes a private thought you've never shared. Most will call this chance a trick of the mind and look away, but you sense a deeper pattern. These aren't mere coincidences. They are what depth psychology recognizes as meaningful causal connections. This is not randomness, but a fundamental intelligence of existence operating outside simple cause and effect. It is the sacred meeting point where your internal world and external reality kiss, mirror one another, and unveil a shared hidden narrative. Your soul doesn't communicate in agendas or bullet points. Its native tongue is one of dreams, of intuitions, of those peculiar moments that make you stop and truly see. When a great internal return is nearing, the unconscious dispatches its heralds. It prepares you for what your conscious mind cannot yet fathom. This preparation occurs in the cellar of your awareness. You feel an undefined stirring, a nameless yearning for something you can't describe, a pressure building behind your ribs that keeps you awake into the deep night. Your physical form is the first to sense it. The world might seem sharper, sounds more distinct. Some notice a fragrance from a distant past, long forgotten, or perceive light with a new, almost overwhelming clarity. This isn't your imagination playing tricks. This is your psyche extending its roots, sensing that a monumental realignment approaches. What you perceive as a vague foreboding is, in truth, a reflection of your original self. Society instructed you to fold inward, to become convenient. The true self is not the ego, nor the crafted mask you wear for others. It is the imperishable essence beneath all the layers of adaptation, hurt, and coping. When a reclamation is imminent, it's because this essence has begun to rouse. It insists on being acknowledged. It is done with being ignored. The question isn't about your readiness. The question is whether you will notice the clues your own depths are broadcasting. Have you observed how former joys now leave you cold? How long-held connections suddenly feel thin and transactional? How endeavors that once defined you have lost their meaning? This isn't decay. This is a necessary demolition. Your psyche is creating a void. It is clearing the ground for something far more genuine, for the you that exists beneath the performance. A comeback isn't about revisiting yesterday. It isn't a nostalgic longing for a time that's past. The concept of homecoming carries a different weight. It suggests a return to a native land you were exiled from. It means recovering the pieces of you that were left behind under the wreckage of others' demands. You aren't going backward. You are journeying back to yourself, to the raw authority you held before anxiety taught you to hesitate, to the innate wisdom you possessed before you learned to compromise for belonging. A critical difference exists between what is inherited from outside and what germinates from within. Many live a life authored by external forces, parental hopes, cultural codes, a partner's desires. They are actors in a script they never wrote. And then one day, after years, something inside fractures. Not from failure, but because the soul can no longer endure its own banishment. Your homecoming begins the second you recognize you are performing a part, that the sentences you speak aren't your own, that you inhabit spaces where your essence cannot expand. This awareness is painful, yet it is the genesis of everything real. There's a vast chasm between a fresh start and a homecoming. A fresh start looks for a new location, a different title, another face, something outside. A homecoming excavates for what was lost internally. It's a dig for the courage you interred the first time you were told you were too bold, for the valid fury you had to suppress to be deemed pleasant, for the honesty you had to mute to avoid abandonment. None of it is lost. It has been preserved, waiting, and it is very much alive. Your resurgence is the gentle unearthing of these living fragments. So many dread their own scale. They were trained to apologize for the room they take up, for their wants, for their right to be. But this smallness is not your nature. It is a conditioned script, and any script that was learned can be rewritten. The path to individuation is the voyage to become who you, in your deepest marrow, have always been. Not an improved person, but a more integrated one. Someone who no longer needs to fabricate to feel secure. Your comeback isn't a self-help project. It isn't about becoming good. It is about becoming whole. But before such a return can happen, something must be released, not metaphorically, but in the actual terrain of your inner life. You cannot reconnect with your core without first navigating the shadows. This descent is the Nekia, the voyage into the personal underworld. Down there in the rooms you've sealed off lie your truths. Down there, too, are the injuries that never mended because you were advised to move on. There dwells the sorrow you were never permitted to weep, the anger you weren't allowed to voice, the profound isolation you've been pacifying with endless scrolls. This descent isn't a penalty. It is a required passage. You cannot rise without first going down. The soul possesses an elemental logic. It will not let you circumvent the depths. It compels you to confront them. And in that confrontation lies a curious mercy. Because in the dark, you don't just find pain. You find the parts of yourself you were forced to leave behind. The inventive child who stopped building because it was deemed impractical. The potent voice that grew quiet because it wasn't heard. The radiant vision that faded under ridicule. All of it remains, waiting for your return, and it is never too late to reclaim it. Perhaps you are currently moving through a season of utter depletion. You feel emptied out, drained with no vitality for the old routines. This is not a flaw. It is the collapse of an artificial framework. For years, you have been propping up an edifice that was never your design on a base of sand. You have been protecting an identity that was a disguise. And now your entire system is powering down. This is beneficial. This is essential. The old structure must disintegrate so your authentic form can emerge. A crisis is not a mistake. It is the psyche's method of navigation. There is a concealed intelligence in this unraveling. Your exhaustion is announcing this way of living is over. Your hollowness is telling you you have given too much of yourself to endeavors that did not cherish you. Your impulse to retreat is signaling it is time to turn inward. Stop reading this as defeat. It is the commencement of your return. Because only in the stillness, only in withdrawing from the world's static, can you finally discern what your soul has been murmuring all along. And its message is elemental. Come home. Return to me. You have worn faces that weren't yours. Some were family heirlooms. Others you fashioned yourself to navigate hostile environments. You have played roles because you were taught your genuine countenance was not welcome. But these masks are now intolerably heavy. They are squeezing your breath. They are preventing you from speaking. Your resurgence begins when you dare to remove one, just one, and you discover that there is still flesh beneath, that you persist, that you do not disappear when the performance ends. This is the instant of supreme fear, for the mask also served as armor. It shielded you from critique, from scorn, from solitude. Without it, you feel naked, and that is precisely the intention. The journey back to yourself demands this exposure. It demands you appear without a promise of acceptance, that you voice your truth without knowing the reaction, that you inhabit your feelings without seeking pardon. This is not a gentle path, but it is the only one that leads to a life that is yours. Now at this pivot, something vital ignites within. A primordial warmth begins to glow anew. It is not a raging inferno, but the steady flame of your own vital force, the one you have banked for so long. Our shadow, the compartment of the psyche we disown, doesn't merely house our faults, it safeguards the raw, undomesticated life energy we had to restrain to be included. Your legitimate rage is there. Your wild inspiration is there. Your unfiltered longing and your sovereign will are there. All of it was stored away, but it is not deceased. It is expectant. Your comeback is the emancipation of this energy. Imagine you have kept a vital, magnificent aspect of your spirit, confined for decades. You fed it morsels of distraction, but you never truly set it free. And now that door is starting to shake. What waits behind it is not a threat. It is the most vital part of you. It is the power that animates you when you cease seeking approval, the intensity that moves through you when you finally utter what you mean, the spontaneous gladness that arises when you act from pure desire without rationale. This energy is flowing back, and you will sense it before you understand it. Your body will feel more alert, your perceptions more vivid. You will begin to reject what you once endured. You will leave atmospheres where you feel reduced. You will let down people who only valued your accommodation. And for the first time, this will feel correct, because you are starting to grasp that your authenticity outweighs their endorsement, that your truth is more sacred than false peace. There is an invisible pact you endorsed without ever consciously agreeing. At some point, you exchanged your core for a sense of safety. You learned, if I fit in, I will be secure. If I am quiet, I will be loved. If I am helpful, I will not be left. This pact was never signed in ink. No one handed you the terms, but you have abided by them season after season until you forgot there was ever a choice. Your homecoming necessitates you nullify this agreement. It requires you to declare with your entire being, I revoke my consent. This is a monumental choice, for that pact has shaped your reality. It has governed your motion, your speech, your allowable emotions. Without it, you may not recognize yourself. And that is exactly where your liberation resides. You don't know who you are because you've never been permitted to find out. Now, in this moment of reclamation, you have the opportunity to discover. Individuation is an act of dissent against the collective trance. You must be willing to betray expectations that were never yours to fulfill. You must be willing to disappoint those who loved your adaptation, but not you. This doesn't mean becoming cruel. It means ceasing to betray yourself to comfort others. It means learning to say no without the acid burn of shame, to exit scenes where your truth is a stranger, to stop explaining, rationalizing, and atoning for your being. Your life is not a plea for validation. You owe no one a defense for your existence. Your comeback crystallizes when you absorb this. And in this unfolding, a peculiar and beautiful thing occurs. You observe some people beginning to fade. Friends suddenly find you unfamiliar. They say you've changed, and they are correct. You have changed. You have awoken. You have come back to yourself. And for those who only knew your managed version, this is deeply disruptive. They want the old you back, the convenient one, the unquestioning one, the perpetually available one. But that version is passing, and you must allow its passing. Let me tell you something difficult, yet fundamentally true. You will not be comprehended by all. Your return will disorient people. Some will label it self-centered, others will call it a phase. Still others will name it a treachery. This is the cost of returning to your truth. You cannot be authentic and universally pleasing. You cannot inhabit your reality and simultaneously satisfy every external hope. Individuation implies a necessary separation. You separate from the herd mind. You separate from the projections placed upon you. You separate from the fiction that your value is tied to how well you assimilate. And in that separation, a novel kind of liberty is born, a freedom sourced not from circumstance, but from an internal well. Suddenly, you no longer crave constant affirmation, not from arrogance, but because you've tapped a different source. That source is you, your inner guidance, your internal North Star, your clean yes and your clean no. This is the axis mundi, the central pillar of ancient lore. It is the unmoving center around which all else turns, and that center dwells within you. For years, you sought this center elsewhere, in lovers, in accolades, in external validation. You believed that if you just achieved enough, sacrificed enough, or refined yourself enough, you would finally feel complete. But it never arrived because it cannot arrive from the outside. The center is not a trophy. It is not a prize. It is your inheritance. It has always been there beneath the chaos, buried under strata of conditioning and grief. Your comeback is the pilgrimage back to this center, to this internal axis that does not sway. No matter the storm, when you start to live from this core, everything transforms. Not the world, but your relationship to it. Things that once seemed crucial simply fall aside. Attachments born of fear can now be released with kindness. Situations you tolerated you now conclude with clarity, not from malice, but from a deep discernment of what is yours and what is not. You can suddenly distinguish what fuels your spirit and what depletes it, and you begin to choose accordingly. This is not an act of self-importance. It is an act of profound self-honoring. The supreme duty a person carries is the duty to their own wholeness, not to the hopes of others, not to the roles assigned, but to the unfolding of the singular being they were meant to be. Your comeback is this very undertaking. It is a refusal to keep living a life that belongs to someone else. It is a choice to stand singular in your truth, rather than stand with the crowd in a comfortable fiction. And then in a moment you cannot foresee, the internal shift occurs. It's not a loud bang. It's more like a quiet settling, the sound of a final piece clicking into its rightful place. You realize you are no longer struggling, not with yourself, not with life. You are simply present, inhabiting your body, this moment, without a need to flee, to dull, or to conceal. That is the homecoming. It is not reaching a finish line, but arriving into your own presence. Ancient cultures spoke of two kinds of time. Chronos is sequential, measured time, the ticking clock. But Kairos is qualitative time, a pivotal opening where destiny unfolds. Your comeback is a Kairos moment. It cannot be scheduled. It happens when the tension between who you are and who you've been pretending to be becomes intolerable, when the agony of the costume finally exceeds the terror of naked truth. That moment is now. Not later, not someday. Now. You are hearing this because something within is already alert. Because your psyche has guided you here to confirm what you already feel in your blood. You stand at the verge of the most significant reclamation of your life. Not because you will acquire something new, but because you will recover what was always yours. Your authority, your insight, your voice, your irrevocable right to be precisely who you are. This return requires no spectators. It needs no ovation. It transpires in the sacred quiet between you and your own spirit. It's the dawn you wake and feel, for the first time in ages, that you have finally arrived in your own skin. It's meeting your own gaze and seeing someone you no longer have to deny. It's saying no and feeling serenity instead of dread. It's saying yes to your soul and feeling zero regret. This is the comeback. This is the return to you. And as you walk, you'll find you no longer need to articulate who you are. People will sense it. Some will be magnetized to this new genuineness. Others will be unsettled by it. Both are perfect, for you are no longer a distortion. You are no longer shifting to match your surroundings. You are a steady point of reality in a fluctuating world. And this solidity doesn't stem from stubbornness. It comes from reality, from knowing you'd rather be authentically solitary than surrounded by those who only love your costume. The individuated person must embrace a certain solitude, not the aching loneliness of exile, but the luminous solitude of one who has left the herd, one who has charted their own course. This solitude is not a deprivation. It is a profound gift, because within it you finally forge a true companionship with yourself. And that is the foundational relationship of your life. Perhaps you fear that if you stop twisting yourself into shapes, no one will remain. Perhaps you worry your essence is too potent, too stark for this world. But understand this. Those who cannot meet you in your full truth are not your tribe. And that is not a loss. It is a divine clarification. It is the necessary clearing so the right people, those who are not intimidated but ignited by your realness, can finally see you. People who desire not your act, but your authenticity. Your comeback is not a regression to a golden age. It is the radical breath-by-breath decision to live from your core now, from your truth, from your non-negotiable essence. It is the decision to stop awaiting external permission to exist. That permission can only be granted by you. And the instant you finally grant it, everything recalibrates. The energy once bound in pretense and restraint begins to circulate. The vitality once frozen begins to melt. You feel for the first time in a long time, truly animate, not perpetually cheerful, but vibrantly, undeniably real. You sense your boundaries and you hold them with compassion. You sense your desires and you follow them with integrity. You sense your truth. You speak it with valor. This is not self-optimization. This is self-reclamation. And as you proceed, you'll witness the external world begin to reorder itself around your new internal truth, not by force, but by resonance. Structures that no longer fit will dissolve. Bonds based on false premises will conclude. New pathways will appear, aligned with who you are becoming. This isn't mysticism. This is coherence. As you become more real, you naturally attract what resonates with that reality and repel what only harmonized with your facade. So your homecoming isn't a single episode. It is a process, an awakening, a gradual dawning to the fact that you are never damaged. You are only dormant. Beneath the strata of adjustment, pain, and self-betrayal, there has always been an unbreakable diamond core. Some name it the self, others the soul. The label is irrelevant. What matters is that you are starting to feel it, that you are starting to live from it, that you are starting to trust it. This core does not deceive, it is not convenient, it is not strategic, it is simply true. When you learn to heed it, your existence assumes a different character. It becomes simpler, not because challenges vanish, but because you cease fighting yourself. It becomes clearer, not because the world is less intricate, but because your inner direction is sure. It becomes lighter, not because burdens disappear, but because you've dropped the weight of the persona. And perhaps in a silent moment of reflection, you will look back and see that every event was requisite, that each fracture brought you nearer to your core, that each loss created room for something more authentic, that each crisis was your soul's summons to come home, home to yourself. This is the ultimate resurgence, not a return to external acclaim, but the return to your own essence. And now that you know, now that you have sensed the veracity of these words, a single question persists. What will you choose? Will you continue to recite the lines you were given? Or will you find the courage to let the performance end? Will you keep pleading for a license to be? Or will you finally issue that license to yourself? The choice is yours alone. But remember, your soul has been patient, and its patience is not infinite. If these words have resonated within you, if you feel yourself standing at this precise threshold, let this moment be your passage into the depths, into the mysteries of the inner world, into the silent wisdom awaiting your attention. Because this journey isn't concluding, it is commencing. I encourage you to walk it, one conscious step at a time, through the unknown and back into your own light. Before you go, if this resonated, please press like. It supports this channel, Soul Silence, and helps these ideas reach others who need to hear them. Reflect on this until we meet again.